Ugh. I guess I need some. My chair is cracky. Good morning. It's almost 7 o'clock. I'm kind of whispering because I have people still sleeping in my house. Oh, I got great sleep. You ever have one of those sleep that just you wake up and you're just like, wow, that was exactly what I needed. That's pretty much my sleep. So I'm waking up and I feel rejuvenated. And it was funny because I started looking at my news feeds and I caught a video by a Black conservative young man. And he was going in on actually one of my favorite urban conservatives, Mosh Toure. And I was just listening to some of the arguments the brothers was making. And I really didn't understand this point. It kind of seemed that you guys are looking at all my facial scars this morning because it's me just waking up. So this is what I look like in the morning. I know it's scary, and it got cold in Michigan too. So I got my. This thing is awesome. I'm sorry. I highly encourage people to get it. It's like a full blanket. If you don't like to wear a blanket, if you don't like to wear a lot of covers, this thing is great because usually I'm not even kidding. I sleep like this. I put it all the way over, and this is how I sleep. But he was kind of going in, and he was talking to he made these claims that Mosh Toure was and other pro-black conservatives. He feels like they're fake, and he made a lot of arguments that I just thought were kind of off. And I feel like, one thing that people need to understand, and one thing that I have come to understand, is that there are different conservative perspectives within the Black conservative space. And I think that has to be noted in terms of when you hear people talk about the conservative messaging. I think I've always had a conservative perspective on life, um, just because I did grow up in a relatively religious household. My mom, she did provide a structure. She provided a structure that I actually did not have previously to being in her home. And I say that because I was in the foster care system, and I grew up. It's funny. I was born in that 25% tile of blacks life where it's poverty line, crime. I've heard people getting killed. I've seen people getting killed. I remember having a car full of men with guns pointed at me and my siblings and my auntie, shielding us with her big body, begging these dudes. They are nothing but kids. So, I relate to a part of the Black segment of the community that I feel like sometimes some conservatives like to dismiss. And I'm going to say it until the cows come home. When whether you're a liberal Black or conservative Black, when you make arguments about the Black community, I often ask these individuals, which segment are you talking about? Because I think if you break the Black segment of the Black community segment of America down, you'll see that within that segment there are different. Um, Good morning, Marshall. Happy Memorial Day to you. Um, you're gonna see that there are different Black experiences that are happening in those different segments of the Black community, and I often feel like that should be just more in the discussion more so that when people are making arguments about the Black community, it's like, well, which segment are you talking about? Are you talking about the at risk poverty, fading middle class Blacks? Are you talking about those upper echelon bourgeoisie blacks that actually got money. Um, but I often ask, which segment are you talking about? And I think with your pro-black conservatives, a lot of people kind of misrepresent their messaging, and they almost make it seem like it's a separatist, because a lot of pro-black conservatives do quote Malcolm X quite a bit, who a lot of people have seen as kind of a separatist, where he believed blacks should exist in this country, but sort of like in their own community where they are thriving and they're doing everything that every other community does in this country. And what Malcolm X was saying wasn't very separatist at all. Like, if you're in Michigan and you go to Hamtramck, there's a Polish community there. When you go to any other major state or city, you see, you have an Arab community. You have that pretty much live in the same area. You have a Chinese or Asian community that live in a, so and when I lived in Farmington Hills, that was like little India, because a lot of the Indian population settled in Farmington Hills, Michigan. A lot of the Asian population settled in Farmington Hills, Michigan. So I think that was what Malcolm X was talking about, us building our communities together and coalescing and supporting each other and being pro our community, elevating just as much as any other community in this country or segment. So I think that when you talk about pro-black conservatives, I think that the messaging is so important. It's so important, and I think when you talk about pro-black conservatives, I look at pro-black conservatives such as myself as individuals who believe in the elevation of black people, and the reason why it's necessary for us to have this mindset, not saying that we don't want to see any other group thrive in this country all the same, but I think what that messaging says is like we have been a group that has traditionally had rhetoric around us that has been not elevating, and we need to change the psychology of our people, with a pro-black message of elevation and excellence. And so I think that's where your Maj Toures come in, where they have an urban conservative perspective. I have an urban conservative perspective. And in fact, Marshall, my friend here, he even said to me the other day, you don't seem like you're conservative. And I'm like, cool. Because if my thing is I have an urban style, I have an urban dialogue, and as much as and even when I decided to join the conservative movement, I had to figure out what that meant for me as a person as well, because I feel like conservatism is an ideology. You know what I mean? It's a idea of tradition, and it's an idea of, to me, fiscal and economic responsibility too. And so I think that we're all kind of conservative, at heart. But I feel like your traditional conservatives, I think that they are more in they have more of this sense of, I want to say, universal patriotism, which appeals to a lot of the patriot type Americans who are like, you know what? You're not black, I'm not white, we're all just Americans. And I'm like, well, in an easy, simplified world, yeah, that's probably true. But there's a reason why people are buying ancestor DNA kits, because they're very interested in their heritage and their ethnicity. So I think that people like to have a sense of traditionalism and even understanding themselves. And so I don't think that there's anything wrong with people sort of breaking things down sensibly and saying that, yes, I'm American, but I'm also of African descent. and there's aspects of my ethnicity and my traditional culture that I would like to embrace, and I would like to celebrate with people of all races. You know what I mean? And I don't think that is, I feel like I grew up believing that America was a melting pot. And every picture I saw of that melting pot, it wasn't like everything melted into one color. You know what I mean? And that pot, it never fused into one color. Every single spectrum of that melting pot always stayed the same, where you saw all the beautiful colors and all the beautiful representations of the cultures and experiences that you can get from almost any individual in this country, because we're not all the same. You know what I mean? And so I feel like there's much to embrace from that melting pot. You know what I mean? And the pot is America. But within America there's so much beauty, there's so much color. And I don't think that being a conservative, I have to somehow relinquish my idea of my blackness and my heritage and just say I'm American. I mean, that's my nationality, right? That's the country I was born in, right? But that's not all of who I am. And it's very clear. I mean, I go outside and grab three of my neighbors, and we're gonna all be Americans that look significantly different, that eat different food, that celebrate things in a different way. So, when people start, attacking pro-black conservatives, I'm like, what is wrong with a black conservative wanting to promote elevation in in their community? I mean, why is that such an issue for anybody? Like, because to me, promoting black excellence is sort of the black conservative ideology. And to me, because the black experience has been so different in this country from other groups, there needs to be a level of psychological elevation in the form of people promoting the black community up psychologically. You know what I mean? Because I'm not going to sit here as a black conservative and claim that the traumas that many black people have gone through and have seen, and that still sits with them, is not there. It's just not my experience. You know what I mean? And so I'm very careful how I talk to or at my community. And I don't personally like black conservatives that pander to talking points that make our community look ignorant as a whole. Because to me, when certain conservatives want to talk about people being fake and they just trying to sell something, it's like, first of all, conservatives are capitalists, okay? That's what capitalists do. They create a brand around their own personal messaging, and then they extend that brand by selling products that people may or may not want to buy into. You know what I mean? So it's like some of these conservatives are weird. Like, they're weird to me. Like, they talk about, the urban conservatives, but I feel like some of your mainstream conservative, black conservatives are weird, because they sit there and they want to be the rock stars of the conservative movement, but the underground urban conservatives are resonating with the black community a lot better than they have. And that's the truth. Like, you got people like Kwame Brown, right? You got people like Maj Toure that's giving people a different conservative perspective outside of your mainstream people on the mainstream conservative talking points or Republican talking points. Because I'm sorry, every mainstream black conservative I see, they'll say the same damn thing that Kevin McCarthy or any of them other GOP people will say. And that's why they don't resonate with black people. It's so funny because a lot of people, they've asked me, because they're like, how long have you been conservative? I'm like, I literally just started claiming conservatism last year. Last year. So, as much as I've had like a conservative mindset, a level of conservative mindset, like my mindset has always kind of been on a liberal side, fully. I mean, so it's like people change their perspective and they kind of get an understanding of things. But just because you jump on the conservative train, don't mean that as a woman you start dressing. I'm not going to dress like Ned Flanders' wife. I'll probably never be the idea of a conservative to some other people because I'm just not cut that way. And I don't want to be cut that way because it's just not me. You know what I mean? I feel like I can intelligently speak to people about reasonable things, about just sensible economics and sensible, social interaction. And I can do all of those things, you know what I mean? And, still say that I'm a conservative and still be myself. You know what I mean? Sometimes I curse. I don't know if that's like a conservative thing, but I curse sometimes. I mean, I curse a lot actually. But I curse sometimes. If I go out, I may get dressed up, and depending on how I'm feeling, I don't dress like a slut, but I may not dress like what a conservative may think. What else? To me, when I think about me, I feel like I'm definitely conservative, libertarian more. You know what I mean? I'm not a GOP traditional conservative. Traditional Black conservatives, I've looked at the arguments and the debates between liberal Blacks and Black conservatives way back into the 60s, because check out the podcast I did with my boy Christopher a couple of weeks ago about why Black conservatives are not resonating with Black liberals. And I think you'll find that discussion very interesting because, it's just a recycled pattern of why Black conservatives have not resonated with liberals. You know what I mean? And one of the things that we sort of thought about, I'm getting hot now. Yeah, I'm almost 40, so menopause is creeping on me. But what was I going to say? I'm my menopause thing threw me off, but geez, let me get back on point. I can't even rewind this, but I had a hot flash. I'm like, Jesus Christ. But yes, in that video, in that podcast, we talked about some of the talking points of mainstream conservatives and some of the arguments that liberals make about them and their rhetoric. And some of the arguments that I've heard from liberal Blacks, is that Black conservatives don't understand the struggles of their people, which is true because we don't articulate them very well, some of us. That Black conservatives hate themselves and they hate their people. And there are conservatives that they will never say it, but they are so alienated from their people by their rhetoric, by their presentation of their people, that it's almost as if, they're like, I'm American, but that's it. And it's like, and that's your choice. And there's a lot of whites on the Republican conservative side. They are cool with that, but they will never say that I'm just American. They're going to always say that they're white American. They're not going to give up their identity. You know what I mean? The way that some Black conservatives are like, I'm not Black, I'm just American. So, like I said, everybody do whatever you are comfortable with, but at the end of the day, I think that people need to be open to all spectrums of the conservative argument, the Black conservative argument. because you do have your traditional conservatives. And I would like to note about them, many traditional conservatives, they grew up with the level of structure that some conservatives that have come over into the movement have not. So we're coming into the conservative perspective in the movement with our own experiences, and they're uniquely different than these conservatives. So these people can talk about what Black people should do from the outside looking in, of from the point of having the structure that a lot of people on this side haven't had. These conservatives can look at and argue the Black experience from being in the trenches of it. You know what I mean? When you have been in the trenches of where your people sit psychologically in this country today, outside of the arguments of slavery and civil rights, I think you can present the conversation about Black to your people and about your people to me in a definitely a more sensitive and empathetic way. And I don't believe in being a sympathy junkie, but I do believe in being reasonable so that I can resonate to the people that I'm trying to reach. So if you listen to different Black conservative perspectives, you're going to hear perspectives across the board. And all of these perspectives are coming from their own experiences in life. And I think from your Maj Torres to your Candace Owens, to your Angela Stantons, to your Brandon Tatums, all of these people have their own perspectives because they have their own experiences in this country. And they're going to communicate to the Black community in a different way. They're going to resonate with the Black community in a different way. And it's so funny because when I started the conservative movement and I started sharing my conservative perspective, I continuously got compared, and even now, ignorant liberals compare me, excuse me, to Candace Owens. And it's like, Candace Owens has her own conservative style and perspective. Angie Card has her own conservative style and perspective. And although if we came together at the table, we would be talking about the same damn things, but in very different ways. Because she is cut from a structured cloth and I'm cut from a structured cloth, but I had a portion of my life that was unstructured. So I understand the psychology of my people. I understand the mindset of my people because even as an adult, I've lived in the hood. And let me tell you something, there's a whole psychology. There's a whole psychology in this segment of the Black community that I think, a lot of these arguments don't really give justice. And so that's why I think, when you talk about Black conservatives and you talk about the conservative movement in general, you're going to have your Candace Owens who will dogmatically talk about the community or talk to the community in a way that is sensible to her because she's come from a different structure. And she goes, she's one of those, this is all you have to do to succeed. And she's absolutely right. But then you have some of these, you have your, more realistic Maj Tories who like, we got to change your mind. We got to get in your head first. We got to get you pro-Black. The more pro-Black you are, the more you'll realize that you can make it in the capital system regardless of how you look. And that messaging, these two different types of messaging really do resonate differently to liberal Blacks. That's why I feel like Republicans, they have done themselves a disservice. They will continue to do themselves a disservice, elevating certain voices to represent the Black community. And when they wonder why they can't resonate to liberal Blacks in the way that they want to, is because they have the wrong type of voices. You got somebody that's willing to be your puppet to talk to your talking points. And that's why, Black people don't hate Candace Owens. Every Black person that I've talked to, They don't hate Candace Owens. They believe Candace Owens hates them. They believe that Candace Owens hates her people. And, you know, when you listen to some of the rhetoric and you listen to how she presents rhetoric, it's not far off that they would believe that. So why would she resonate to Black people, and why would Republicans expect for her to resonate to the core of the Black community that they need, you know, on their side? You know, it doesn't work. It does not work. It doesn't work, and it hasn't worked, because Candace Owens is not saying anything that Black conservatives from long ago, from your Thomas Sowells to your Walter Williams to your Shelby Steels, we all are saying the same damn things. But I think where it's different is we are seeing it from different experiences. So I don't disagree with anything that Candace Owens necessarily says about the Black community. I disagree with how she says it. I resonate with your Angela Stantons and your Maj Torres because they're urban conservatives and they present an argument that just resonates better for me. And that's going to be the case for the conservative movement, that they need to realize too. You have your traditional conservatives that are probably going to be able to resonate to a reasonable portion of the Black community that may have a little bit more education. But for those who need a little bit more help, a little bit more inspiration, and a little bit more, empowerment, your pro-Black conservatives are going to always resonate with those Blacks more. And that is why it is very important not to just elevate traditional Black conservatives. Because I'll be honest with you, traditional Black conservatives have not done a very good job at resonating to the Black community, because we still over 90%. The community is still over 90% doing the same damn thing. So is the traditional Black conservative perspective really the best perspective for the conservative movement? You guys tell me. Because it's interesting, because we go into the, what inspired me to go and do this live is, number one, I got tired of people telling me that I didn't seem conservative. And number two, it's like, I feel like people need to be educated about the various Black conservative perspectives. And they really need to understand that we are all coming to this conversation with different experiences, much different experiences. And so, one group is going to resonate. To me, I feel like traditional Black conservatives typically have pandered to the talking points of the GOP. And liberal Blacks have been able to see this and recognize it, and they have had absolutely no inspiration to allow that messaging to resonate to them. So if anybody wants to know why, there are so many liberal Blacks, maybe we should revisit, the traditional elevation of the Black conservative voice here, and maybe give some of the urban conservatives a shot. And I see them doing it more, because I've been seeing Maj Toure more on Fox News, which anytime I post Maj on my professional networks, this dude gets like hella love. So I definitely think he's a brother to listen to, just like I think all Black conservatives are someone to listen to, your Candace Owens and all the other ones, But I think that, people need to realize, when you're listening to the various different Black conservative voices, you need to understand that the messaging is going to be different. It's going to resonate with you different. And it's okay, because at the end of the day, we're still all talking about the same thing. We're just talking about it from different experiences and maybe from different scopes of the lens. So I hope everyone enjoy your holiday today. I wanted to do this early because my sister did all the cooking, but I still got to do all the little B League stuff like drinks and chips and plates and stuff. So I need to hit Myers. I'm such a last minute person, but I'm writing a book, and it's kind of been this obsession with me until I get it done. I think I'm targeting, I want it done by the end of hopefully July, so I can get it over to somebody to just scribble all over it and just chop up my Hemingway. I am like the typo queen. I'm saying that on record. Because if you follow my content on LinkedIn, first of all, it's Google Voice Chat's fault. Because I don't know if I'm talking too fast or what, but Google Voice Chat, it fails me every time. And I'm doing everything so multitask. It's like, I can't trust Google. I can't trust you, Google. And I had a really good video. Let me tell you about Google. These tech companies, all these companies, we just got a love and hate relationship these days because I'll have a really good video, right? I'll be talking about social psychology stuff, which they don't seem to like because it fucks with their it messes with their algorithms when people who think promotes rational thinking, right? So the last thing an algorithm wants to see is anything dealing with social psychology, because it's like, wait a minute, this is not what we need people to see. We need you zonked into something stupid. So I found that my content on social psychology, just questioning beta females, beta personalities, any discussions of those lines, I am getting all these technical difficulties with Google, with LinkedIn. They're stopping my traffic. I mean, this censorship thing is absolutely real. And they think that people are stupid, that they can't really understand that some people really do follow their analytics. I like John James. Yeah, Michigan, we really missed out with John James. But I think that John James came on the mic at a really good time, but at a really bad time, because it just, to me, I felt like the Democrats had such a hold on America psychologically that he just would not, that he just, it wasn't his time. But I definitely think he should do it again in Michigan. But Chief Craig for governor is more likely to resonate with urban voters. Yeah, Chief Craig has done a great job in Detroit. And I've told people this before. When you talk about these police brutalities, these police lynchings, growing up, we had Malice Green. I don't know if anybody remember Malice Green. That was the situation in Detroit that happened after Rodney King. And I was young, but I remember just all of the upheaval, all of the Saul Alinsky type, rioting going on and upheaval. And I didn't understand any of that stuff at the time, but I remember my Aunt Marie talking about saying that, well, it's open season on niggas. And, I've heard the old black folks say that quite a bit growing up, at a certain time, open season on niggas. And I never understood what that meant until 2020, to be honest with you. 2020 opened my eyes to a lot of stuff. And when George Floyd happened, I understood what open season on niggas meant. But I will say that the city of Detroit handled Malice Green with the quickness. We got it taken care of. Those cops were prosecuted really quickly. We didn't linger that shit on. And I think that, a lot of these cities, I personally believe that they have Democratic operatives implanted in some of these police departments. Maybe they're paid, I don't know. But I personally believe that none of this stuff is a coincidence. None of it is a coincidence that, you see these public lynchings being so exploited during political season. And that's what open season on niggas meant to my Aunt Marie, is that during political season, when the Democrats or the political establishment didn't think that Black people were going to show up to vote for them, they would put the fire under Black people instead of inspiring them. So when they didn't think that Black people were going to show up to vote and they really needed that vote, They did things to inflame Black people, and public lynchings have always been their method of doing that. So when George Floyd happened, I didn't really see that video with the same lens as everyone else. To be honest with you, I looked at him as a political sacrifice. And then Nancy Pelosi and all of the Democrat Hollywood neo thanked George Floyd at his funeral for his sacrifice. And I'm like, this man was supposedly murdered. Why are we using the S word in connection to his death? And so it was just so much validation for me. And it was also very eye opening to me about how Black Hollywood ain't shit and how they are paid to keep our people down and in a state of marginalization, making us believe that we cannot get where they can. All the while, they are supporting these narratives that outright exploit our people for their own personal gain. And to be honest with you, Black Hollywood don't gain that much from the exploiting their own people. So it's like you're literally exploiting your people for pennies. And that's how I feel about that. So I think that, Detroit, we have a handle. We don't have the relations that a lot of these cities have. And I'm glad that we don't. I mean, for the most part, I've never had an issue with the cops. I've never had an issue with the cops. And if I ran into the cops, because I do speed sometimes, all the time, but I do go fast sometimes, and I deserve to get pulled over sometimes, and I'm cool with it. Here you go. I know I was wrong. I acknowledge I was speeding. They're like, yeah, you were going pretty fast. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I gotta get it. Like, I'm so sorry. And I'll apologize. I'll be like, I won't be like dorky about it, but it's like, I was speeding. It's like, yes, you were. Where you going? I have to go pick up my kids, blah, blah, blah. I'll come up with, whatever. And usually they're cool with you acknowledging that you did something wrong. I mean, I'm not rude to cops, especially if I did something wrong. You know what I mean? It's like, why am I about to cut this man out? And I think that's the problem with, and I do appreciate Brandon Tatum, who, covers, he's an ex-cop, and he follows a lot of these police incidences. I don't agree with his coverage all the time. But one thing that he highlights, and I got to look back at his videos to see if he was specific on it, but I talked to another cop from Portland last year when all of this stuff was going on, and he was telling me about his experience with the male on male, right? This male on male aggression, where he said, their cops are very, they're very, to me, respectful to the people that they police. He said, but he finds that, if he pulls a man over, him and his partner, and maybe the guy's in a car full of guys, the guy who's doing something clearly wrong will be very disrespectful. And you see this all the time. It's like, to me, I agree with the assessment that, Black people do need to acknowledge, there's a time to be ignorant and there is a time to be respectful and not ignorant. And breaking traffic laws or breaking the laws is not the time for you to respond ignorantly. And I had a debate online yesterday, and this lady, because I was like, what is systemic racism? And this lady's like, are you serious? She's like, when Black men are being locked up disproportionately for a white man for doing the same crime, I'm like, how about tell your Black boys not to commit crimes? You won't have to worry about being disproportionate anything if you're not out there freaking committing crimes. Let's be honest with that. I mean, and these are the conversations that absolutely need to happen in the Black community. We got to be real with each other about a lot of these arguments that are taking place. You know what I mean? But there's also, to me, when you talk about the at-risk Black community, we also need to start talking about the psychology of the cycle of poverty, because I think that that's definitely a legitimate element of the discussion as well. So, anyways, I'm signing off. Marshall, have a wonderful Memorial Day. Everyone else who tuned in, thank you as well. I'm about to get ready. Get this. I gotta get cute today. I mean, yeah, I've been looking like a ragged muffin lately, but about to enjoy my family. So I hope you enjoy yours too. Take care. Bye.